History does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers. We often look to the grand, booming decades for the story of America. The Roaring '20s, jazz, flappers, the turbulent '60s, protests, cultural upheaval. We mark time by these loud, dramatic moments. We build our national memory around them. But what if the real story, the one that truly forged the nation we know today, unfolded in the quiet spaces in between? What if the most pivotal decade was not one of celebration or conflict, but one of silent, relentless transformation? A time when the seeds of modern America were sown not in the spotlight, but in the deep, fertile soil of anonymity. Imagine a decade often skipped over in the history books, a period seen merely as a bridge between one great war and a Great Depression. It lacks a catchy moniker. It doesn't have the glamour of the Jazz Age or the stark drama of the Dust Bowl. Yet, beneath its seemingly placid surface, a revolution was churning. Not of guns and banners, but of gears and of ideas, of quiet courage and audacious dreams. The machinery of the 20th century was being assembled, piece by painstaking piece. Factories, laboratories, the hearts of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. This was an era of profound paradox. The old world was dying. A new one was struggling to be born. The rhythms of rural life were beginning to fade. They were being replaced by the relentless, mechanical heartbeat of the city, clang of the streetcar, whir of the assembly line, low hum of electricity. It was a change so fundamental, so pervasive, that many at the time could not fully grasp its significance. They were living through the creation of the modern world, yet it felt simply like another Tuesday. We tend to think of progress as a series of great leaps, a sudden invention, a landmark law, a heroic speech. But the 1910s teach us a different lesson. They show us that true lasting change is often a slow, grinding process. A million small acts, a million quiet decisions, a million unsung efforts. In the early years of the 1910s, the automobile was still a rich man's toy. It was a novelty, a loud, unreliable contraption that kicked up dust on unpaved roads and frightened horses. Most Americans saw it as a fleeting fascination, not the future. But in Highland Park, Michigan, Henry Ford was nursing a radical obsession, a car for the great multitude. A vehicle so affordable and simple that any man with a decent salary could own one. Hours of pleasure in God's great open spaces. Ford did not invent the automobile. He did not even invent the assembly line. He perfected it with ruthless efficiency. 84 distinct steps, every movement timed. Machines to build machines. A moving chassis. A revolution in motion. Assembly time fell from over 12 hours to 93 minutes. Prices dropped year after year. Workers became customers. Not just faster cars, but a new relationship between man and machine, labor and capital. In 1914, he shook the world. $5 a day, more than double the auto industry average, not charity, a calculation. While Henry Ford reshaped the factory floor, another revolution rose on America's main streets. Its architect is now largely forgotten, Frank Winfield Woolworth. A quiet shopkeeper with a radical idea. Ordinary people deserved a dignified shopping experience, especially women. In a world of counters and haggled prices, Woolworth imagined liberation. Everything on open counters. Customers could touch, examine, choose, without a hovering clerk. Every item clearly priced. A nickel, a dime. More than strategy, it democratized commerce, removing guesswork and embarrassment, empowering knowledge and choice. He mastered volume and standardization, cut out wholesalers and set factory targets for fixed prices. He built a global supply chain. He understood shopper psychology, excitement at the door. Palaces of commerce for the common man and woman. Stores became social centers. Success was astronomical. In the 1910s, the ether was still silent. The night was truly dark. Tinkerers worked with crystal sets, vacuum tubes, crackling transmitters, seeking to send the human voice through air without wires. Men like Lee DeForest and Edwin Armstrong laid the groundwork for a medium that shrank the nation into a shared experience. Before big networks, radio was a wild democratic frontier, amateurs broadcasting from their homes. They shared news, played records, and simply talked across vast distances. Immediate, intimate. A farmer in Kansas could hear a live performance in Pittsburgh. Voices leapt over mountains, forming an invisible community. At the same time, moving pictures left the carnival for the cathedral. The industry moved to Hollywood. Pioneers created cinema's language: the close-up, the cross-cut, the fade-out. In 1915, a powerful and deeply problematic film revealed cinema's capacity to shape opinion, for better and for worse. America's first true celebrities emerged, faces more recognizable than most world leaders, fed by fan magazines and gossip. In the flicker, millions learned how to dress, how to talk, how to dream. Shadows on a screen projected a glamorous, modern, distinctly American identity. The 1910s are also a story of movement, a quiet exodus reshaping America forever. The Great Migration begins. For generations, most African Americans lived in the rural South, bound by slavery's legacy and Jim Crow sharecropping. The boll weevil devastated cotton. War cut off immigrant labor to northern factories. Factories that once turned away black workers needed labor. Recruiters spread northbound promises. The Chicago Defender urged departures with schedules and stories, leaving broke taboos, often at night, in silence, risking violent reprisal. They were not famous leaders. They were sharecroppers, laborers, domestic workers, the quiet vanguard. They carried meager belongings and generations of hope and fear. Arrivals faced crowded housing, de facto segregation, subtler racism. Yet they persevered, building communities, churches, businesses. They brought the blues and the gospel. In the city, those sounds met and made jazz. What began as a trickle would become a flood, remaking America's cities and history. America was a disconnected patchwork. Coast-to-coast travel took weeks over unreliable dirt roads and rails. The automobile's rise created urgent demand. A grassroots good roads movement lobbied, organized road bees, and sold the promise of paved highways. Progress came town by town, county by county. In 1912, Carl Fisher proposed a coast-to-coast rock highway, the Lincoln Highway, privately funded, stitching local roads. Scouts marked the route for intrepid motorists. It symbolized freedom, optimism, imperfect but transformative. Federal funding began the highway system that would pave the land, create suburbs, and define American life. We stand today, in 2025, in a world that the 1910s secretly built. We scroll through our lives on screens, in direct lineage from flickering palaces and amateur radio whispers. Our instant, endless consumer choice was born in bright, open 5 and dimes. Our society bears the Great Migration's legacies, tensions and triumphs that began on northbound trains. Our cities, our suburbs, our sense of freedom were carved by the automobile's path. The twist isn't that the decade mattered. It never really ended. Its forces still shape our lives. We still grapple with labor and capital in an automated age, with building a just society amid migration, with mass media's impact, with mobility reshaping our planet. The 1910s wrote the source code, mass production and mass consumption, the middle class and media, the demographic map, done in the shadows, raw, chaotic, often brutal.